Crypto Caesar Capital. Hope you're well. It's the 6th of December 2023. We're just going to look at Bitcoin, and we're going to consider the 4-year cycle of Bitcoin because there's a lot of questions around this at the moment. Essentially, those who follow the 4-year cycle are anticipating a peak for Bitcoin around about the sort of September, October, November, December point of 2025. The reason for that is because that is essentially 4 years in the future from the last peak of Bitcoin, which was in November 2021. Now, I'm talking about the 4-year cycle here, not the Bitcoin halving cycle. The Bitcoin halving cycle is something quite different, although it's close to 4 years. On some occasions, it's quite off 4 years, and you can go back and look at my previous videos around that. Let's just concentrate on the 4-year cycle. So the 4-year cycle is pretty straightforward, okay? If you measure each peak of Bitcoin, okay, in each cycle, and each low or bottom or trough, whatever you want to call it, in each cycle, you'll quickly find that if you measure from the peak to the peak, it's about 208 bars on a weekly chart, which of course equals 208 weeks. And each bottom to bottom is 208 weeks, so 4 years. So peak to peak, 4 years, bottom to bottom, 4 years, bottom to bottom, 4 years, peak to peak, 4 years. So Bitcoin, of course, follows this this rhythm, I like to call it, of 1 year bear market and then 3-year bull market. Okay, it's followed that since inception. So those who are trading or are interested in the 4-year cycle, and the 4-year cycle, of course, is something you cannot really ignore because it's something Bitcoin's followed now since inception. But those who are trading this or are interested in this are looking for Bitcoin to peak out around about the sort of September to December point in 2025. That would be its natural 4-year cycle high, okay? That's because the high was in November 2021, therefore 4 years later into the future is going to be around the November, December, September, October point. You've got to give some leniency with the 4-year cycle because it's not that exact, but you've got to give it some leniency. But based on that, a lot of people are anticipating a peak to come in around about the sort of September through December 2025 point. Now that's fine. For me, Bitcoin continues to follow this 4-year cycle, but of course I'm always looking for invalidation because there is no point following something when it clearly becomes invalidated, because at that point it becomes invalidated, right? It might not be following that cycle or that pattern anymore, and that means that you could be completely wrong on this trade. So it's always good to accept when you're wrong, okay, and look for that invalidation. Now, for me, the invalidation would be that Bitcoin surpasses its all-time high in 2023, goes parabolic, or in the very early part, or you know, the first sort of say 6 months of or the first 2 quarters of 2024. So just to repeat, for me, an invalidation of the peak coming in around about September through December 2025 point would be Bitcoin surpassing its all-time high either this quarter or the next 2 financial quarters in 2024, and it surpassing the all-time high and going parabolic. And I'll explain to you why. So this is the 4-year cycle of Bitcoin. Hopefully you can understand this chart. I've tried to make it as clear as I possibly could. And as you can see in this chart, we have each 4-year cycle low. So mapped out here, we've got January 2015 cycle low, we've got the December 2018 cycle low, and we've got the November 2022 cycle low. So we can see all those cycle lows. And from there, you can essentially track the midpoint, okay? So from one cycle low to the next cycle low, we know from looking at our other chart, right, it's 4 years. So when we track that, the midpoint, of course, is 2 years, right? So we track it. And what we can see quite clearly when we track the midpoint of the cycle is very interesting, in fact. And it's this. Essentially, right from the first cycle of Bitcoin has never surpassed its all-time high prior to the midpoint of the cycle. Okay, so this was the first cycle, and you can see it comes up right on the midpoint, and that's the point of which it surpasses its all-time high. It goes parabolic and off it goes. Okay, this was the cycle low in January 2015. The midpoint, January 2017, Bitcoin, in fact, surpasses its all-time high just before, or taps the all-time high just before the midpoint, but then goes on to surpass the all-time high in the second part, as it were, of the cycle. So if we can think of each of these cycles, this is the first part, this is the second part. So this is the entirety of the second cycle, but this is the first part of the cycle, this is the second part of the cycle, right? Now, the point is that on each occasion, Bitcoin has never surpassed the midpoint, or it's never surpassed, sorry, the all-time high prior to the midpoint. You can see here again in November 2020, Bitcoin pretty much like clockwork started to surpass its all-time high just after the midpoint in December 2020. So what is anticipated if you are a 4-year cycles trader or interested in the 4-year cycle, and you have that as part of your toolkit when investing or trading, is that you are looking at the midpoint in this cycle. Now, the midpoint comes in about October 2024. So for me, an invalidation of the 4-year cycle would be, well, on each occasion, Bitcoin has never surpassed its all-time high prior to the midpoint, or significantly prior to the midpoint. You know, we can't say, oh, it's a month before the midpoint, therefore it's invalidation. I'm talking significantly prior to the midpoint. So as I said, about sort of 3 to 4 months prior to the midpoint. So let's take an example. If Bitcoin goes absolutely parabolic in 2023, surpasses its all-time high, and then starts going, you know, absolutely crazy to the upside, then for me that would be a complete invalidation of the 4-year cycle high. So I would not be looking for a peak of Bitcoin coming in around about the September, November, December point of 2025. To me, Bitcoin's going to peak out early because it's not going to keep on going. And you've got to be careful of that, because a lot of people are going to be saying, oh, we've not peaked. We haven't found the 4-year cycle high yet. We're still going. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep going to $1 million. You know, you're going to hear all sorts of ridiculous commentary on this. But for me, an invalidation of the 4-year cycle thesis, i.e. Bitcoin topping out in September through December 2025, would be invalidated if we start getting this move surpassing the all-time high significantly prior to the midpoint. That would be either this financial quarter or the first 2 financial quarters of 2024. We go, and then we go parabolic. For me, then, this whole possibility of Bitcoin topping out in sort of the September through December 2025 point is going to be potentially validated, because for me, I don't think Bitcoin can continue to go parabolic for that long. And you're going to hear people talking about super cycles. I mean, I don't even know what a super cycle is. I mean, it's just ridiculous, right? But people are going to be talking all sorts of silliness. For me, that's going to be a massive red flag. So in conclusion, I still think that the 4-year cycle will continue as being intact, and I still think the potential is that we're going to peak out in September through December 2025. But I'm willing to be wrong on that, because I have to be, right? Because otherwise I'm going to lose money. So for me, an invalidation of that thesis would be Bitcoin surpassing its all-time high significantly prior to the midpoint. So going parabolic, surpassing its all-time high, either this quarter or the next 2 financial quarters in 2024. All right, so there we are. We'll see what happens, and we'll track it as we go along. I'll do another video on it very soon, but that's it for today. If you want to join the group, then please send us an email via our website, link in the description, or similarly, you can just reach out to me on Twitter, and we can get you in the group that way. Either way, reach out to us, and we're great to have you in the group. Please smash the like button. Please follow us, get the algorithm going. Much appreciate all the follows we get here, and we shall see you again very soon. Thank you very much for listening. Take care. Bye-bye.